Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Australians under lockdown in Shanghai fear family separation as city reports first COVID deaths. Authorities in the Chinese financial hub of Shanghai say 3 people with COVID-19 have died, the first time during the latest outbreak that officials have reported deaths among coronavirus patients. The deaths come as thousands of the city's residents remain in up to 100 quarantine facilities for those who have tested positive for COVID-19 but have few or no symptoms. Real estate saleswoman Bai Bei is one of those patients. She sleeps beside thousands of strangers in rows of cots in Shanghai's National Exhibition and Convention Center, which now houses 50,000 beds for patients. The 30-year-old says the center's lights stay on all night, and she has yet to find a hot shower. Bai Bei, who asked to be identified only by her given name, and her husband were ordered into the massive exhibition center last Tuesday after spending 10 days isolated at home following positive COVID tests. As a result, she has been separated from her 2-year-old daughter, who tested negative, and is now staying with her grandfather, after her nanny also was forced into quarantine. This policy of separating families has alarmed Western expats in the city. People who test COVID positive, including children, are taken to government quarantine centers even if they are asymptomatic. It is just one of the tough measures being implemented under Shanghai's strict lockdown, which began in March and is part of China's broader COVID-0 policy. China reported 26,155 new cases on Sunday, all but 3,529 of whom had no symptoms. Since the start of March, Shanghai has recorded more than 229,000 positive COVID-19 results. But authorities say fewer than 10,000 are actually confirmed cases. Read more. Shanghai accounted for 95% of the total, or 24,820 cases, including 3,238 with no symptoms. The city has reported more than 300,000 cases since late March. Shanghai health authorities confirmed 305 infected children aged 6 and younger were put in quarantine during March. The separation rules have left many Australian parents in the city of 25 million people feeling uneasy about what the future might hold. Norman Lau, an Australian who has lived in Shanghai for nearly 20 years, has 2 children, aged 11 and 14. The risks of quarantine, separation from family, are even scarier than the risk of contracting COVID itself, Mr. Lau said. Many expats, he said, were frightened by such a potential. Australia raises concerns over family separation. In a video message posted to social media, Australian Ambassador to China Graham Fletcher said the government had raised its concerns over the severe measures with Chinese authorities. Chinese authorities are working hard to reduce case numbers. But we know lockdowns and other restrictions are having a real impact on all of you there in Shanghai, he said. The confinement and particularly the duration, and what might happen, are understandably very upsetting. Along with other governments with a presence in Shanghai, Australia has raised our concerns directly with the Chinese authorities, including about access to food, medical services, or the airport. As part of the strict restrictions, Shanghai's health authorities have prohibited citizens from leaving their apartments for groceries or exercise since the citywide lockdown began. Read more. This has led to complaints about food shortages among the city's residents. People with chronic disease and non-covered conditions have also struggled to get treatment and medication. Recent social media videos showed some residents rallying in their apartment complexes to request food and supplies from authorities. Country representatives in Shanghai, including the French consulate and the British embassy, reportedly sent letters to authorities on behalf of more than 30 other countries including Australia, to express concern over Shanghai's lockdown measures and the separation of parents and children. Mr. Fletcher said Australia had also raised concerns about the conditions of quarantine facilities, including whether families will be separated. Like others, we are raising these concerns directly with Chinese officials, without always getting the answers we want, he said. Enda Waters, a dual Australian-American citizen, arrived in Shanghai in September 2020 after spending 6 months in on-and-off lockdowns in Melbourne. The English language teacher said the biggest difference between the lockdowns in the two cities, other than the Shanghai one being stricter, was the unpredictability of food supplies. That was never the case in Melbourne. We could always go to the grocery store and get food, he said. Space to play or pause, M to mute, left and right arrows to seek, up and down arrows for volume. Mr. Waters said he and many other expats from Western countries signed a petition against the separation of families, but it was